Okay.
And I'll call the meeting to order of the Revision Commission. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the first item on the agenda is public comments. Have anything you want to say to us?
No, I just, Nicholas Jordan,
Okay.
Face Road, just, color keeping us comfortable and following along. I personally have recommendations about a conservation commission, the funding of that, and I just want to be part of that discussion.
And if you want to talk about that now, it'd be good.
Is there all the time? Yeah, I didn't know.
I mean, it's public comments. So you-
I didn't know when the right time was. I don't really have any sort of like organized technical position on that. Just that coming from being a local resident of the area and hearing things for conservation and all things nature and community related. I feel like we need a conservation commission in our town, just as an advisory committee to the other plannings, looking at these commissions, planning organizations of the town that maybe have other concerns or have more responsibilities than they take on, that they maybe can't focus on gathering info about land, about what's what, what's where, what it means net to the natural world, to the sustainable development of our community. Yeah, and I noticed that other towns in our area have all found conservation commissions around 1964, 1963 period. And
Sure.
Our Inland Wetlands Commission used to be called the Conservation Commission, was changed, the name was changed for a charter. So it started out that way. Some of those other towns that happened back to the 1960s, we did too. We changed ours in keeping with water courses, rather than just an overall conservation into it. So, you know.
I'm on our wetlands commission now.
That I didn't know.
So I guess I'm in the right place, but I feel that there's something lacking from, so being on the Wetlands Commission for the last 4 years, because I have not been able to help but feel that there is a disconnect in the information that we get and we're allowed to kind of bring into our decision making, because wetlands is very focused on it's an executive, help me out with the words, like administrative commission. We have some sort of executive authority, administrative authority when it comes to the wetlands courses, as it pertains to prospective like development or yeah. So I think we're missing a broader, another source of information for our existing commissions that they can tap into and be like, oh, here, we didn't have that on our minds, but Conservation Commission. Made it clear.
Yeah, I just wonder if you give us something like a specific example without compromising, integrity. There's something specific what you're driving at here.
So the idea is to, well, I don't know exactly what you mean when you say compromising integrity.
Well, if you have a current case that's before you.
Yeah.
You might not want to talk about
Right.
Sure, thank you. Okay.
You have to keep something confidential within your.
Yeah. No, so, but just in general, that's with, when we get applications for wetlands, or regardless of wetlands, just as a general town planning tool, having a conservation commission who's done research on certain sites or who has contacts on agreements with maybe, you know, property owners, private property owners, or so forth. Just as a non-administrative, non-executive advisory rule that zones can come to, that wetlands can go to, that maybe first selectmen's office meetings, just with, I don't know, I guess with land use and conservation in mind, most, yeah, any questions? It's kind of,
A long time ago, I was on the Environmental Impact Commission of the City of Danbury. And there were times when we would not only review application, but if we took issue with a particular property or an interest in something on a grander scale, you know, through planning, you know, if I recall, that's all in the statute. The commission has the authority to bring issues to the town, you know, in an official way. So if you're talking specifically about, I don't know, not things beyond whether it's within 100 feet of a water course, you know, things on a grander scale, flora, fauna, whatever. I'm not that well versed in today's terms. I think that if you look in the statute, I think the Environmental Impact Commission already has that authority. Maybe they're not, exercising it. Every commission works a little differently. Some of them have vast knowledge, others are very limited and they stick within their own lane. But my point is, I don't know if it's necessary, because I think you already have it. And does anybody else agree? I mean,
You talked about the Environmental Impact Commission, but it's the Inland Wetlands Commission that we're talking about.
We don't have a separate environmental.
yeah, I didn't know we had.
well, I misspoke then. And I think we're all talking about the same thing.
We have the sustainability
Right.
proposal, which is also part of, a lot of it's linked.
I mean-
We just have to decide what our needs are. I agree with you.
It comes in conjunction kind of with the Sustainable Bethel Commission, but they are focused on, they have a whole lot on their plate there too, separate, aside from land acquisition, land and conservation.
So yours is land focused.
Mostly, I would think, I need to figure it out.
We've actually been talking about this to some degree with planning and zoning. And I'm trying to learn more about exactly what it is, but conservation commissions are already kind of set up by statute on what it does. And it's really kind of, it's almost a separate authority over land in the town. They can make recommendations, planning and zoning and things like that, but you can actually give it, the legislative body can create it and give it powers to do easements and do all kinds of stuff. So I need to learn more about it. I was kind of, but
So here's a question that I would have about something like the Conservation Commission. Would it have the kind of authority to tell zoning board of appeals it couldn't grant an appeal?
most of what I've read about it says that it provides information to planning and zoning. I don't think I've ever seen that, but we could do whatever we wanted. We could make it another, I don't think we should go that far. Because right now, planning and zoning, I don't think you would break it up too much. Planning and zoning really has more say over open space right now and acquiring and being involved in that whole thing. The commission, or conservation commission, I would think would be somewhat involved in that as an advisory piece, but then they may be there to manage open space. I think that's the piece of this. We have all this open space and we might not necessarily manage it well. And they would be in charge of the land and creating easements and doing things with our open space and then, giving advice from council to the board.
As a commissioner,
What the law says.
to join you, I feel like that we're missing information, that we're starved for information on our commission to make the decisions that we've made today. I felt like that for 4 years in the commission.
Well, if I can add, mostly things that come before you are regulatory things. Someone's trying to build something within 100 feet of a wetland, right? Water course or wetland, right? You can, as a commission, you can ask for different engineers reports reflecting things beyond soil conditions. I think that's within the purview now, but obviously now is the time. If we were going to introduce a commission or expand the authority, by getting legal opinion, then welcome your thoughts, because now is the time.
Right.
So, but I don't think anybody here is good with Dan saying he doesn't have the amount of knowledge that he'd like to really speak upon it in a very affirmative way.
Nor do I, I'm here to have the discussion. It's like, I didn't even plan on speaking to that tonight. I just came to listen to you guys. I didn't know the time.
Well,
I do feel strongly.
we have received your email and maybe it went to everyone that, this would be that's why I was saying.
Yeah.
It's public comments, it's certainly open. And that doesn't mean this is your only opportunity to see.
As far as I know, in what I've researched and what I would take from it for our town is that it's a valuable piece of like information, another, group of eyes and people who are caring about, conservation can have a broad definition, but so it may be something, there may be a historical conservation aspect. There may not be.
And
Yeah.
conservation commissions in focus.
But from what I know, it's an advisory,
Right.
I'm not sure. We're to figure out the legal.
Would it focus on the natural environment as opposed to the built environment? Or could it?
Yeah,
The built environment as well.
this is all up for kind of. I see historical preservation of sites, certain sites also kind of having to do with this because there's pieces of that matter, like things get lost in time sometimes, and you may want to conserve them or not. But it helps just knowing, like reading kind of the landscape and seeing what's there.
The cautionary tale that I would take out of some of this would be, although I really like what you said about, asking developers or applicants to provide more information. The difficulty on P and Z that I found, and I think some commission would agree, is sometimes if you ask an applicant too much, it's implying that you're going to say you're going to work favorably if they spend the money and give that to you. So you have, there's sort of that very fine line between asking for more just to satisfy your mind and asking for more because you need it in order to process an application. Do you know what I mean?
I do, and I appreciate that. However, that's not my experience. My experience is that when commissioners asked for more information, hopefully it was asked in such a way that did not give the impression that this was going to be understaffed. And we just want this information just so that we can, give our, our thumbprint on it. Because we had to be, and it was
No, I know why I'm thinking about we were
saying, right, because, and that was, but unless the ask was completely out of bounds and just unrelated to the entire subject, it's never, and it was done in order to gain more information so that they could make an educated decision. That was just, it wasn't.
Well, there's clearly a lot that you brought to the table for us to discuss, and what we missed it, that is important. I mean, I didn't realize that there was that much of a gap, and now that you mentioned it, of course there is.
That's just from my perspective.
Right.
And I see that these other towns develop these conservation commissions, and then maybe they take them into different areas. You said, I guess we think, I didn't know that.
It was called the concert. Inland wetlands was called the conservation.
But since then, I think the duties have become very separate. They've
Well, there
become
wasn't
different.
the comprehensive understanding that we have now.
We're in the Inland Wetlands Commission. We have set up our own inland wetland specific regulations, our own guidelines. So scientists, low
Right.
development things that we need to focus on. None of that has to do with what's going on in town, what's its appetite, what does it represent for the community or things like that. That's more like a conservation.
You might bring this up with the Inland Wetlands Commission and just talk it through and see what they would think about either an expansion of their duties or the creation of
I
a
think
new
they would
commission.
uniformly,
Yep.
or something, I didn't to.
Yeah.
Isn't that state statute driven?
Oh, it's, Dan made a reference to.
So conservation commissions are just a statute. Remember, we can tear things down to the charter, but it's really up to the legislative body to try to get it on, or how we do that. It does say it's more, I think of it more of a land use, more like a land trust. It's a lot like a land trust.
And we're
And
doing
we can give, and we can give them, permission to buy property, easements on property, maybe charge for property, make rules on our property, determine the best use for open spaces and things like that. And also give information to the land use board, land zoning, and then wetland on what they think could happen with open space.
And they currently do.
Well, right now, yeah, that planning, zoning and
Right.
the wetlands kind of runs that. I've been approached by planning and zoning to do this, and it's on the list to kind of look at, look more about, to see if it's something that would work, and it's really, really needed, because right now our open space is done by P and Z, but to his point, having somebody who can manage those properties. Well, we have a lot of open space, but the problem is, most of our open space are just little pieces of property here and there. We're working on getting a couple bigger ones. Should that happen, then yeah, maybe Conservation Commission is the perfect place to manage that.
We should talk about, yeah, but it's good to talk about here, anyway, that kind of makes sense, because the Conservation Commission could be sort of a town liaison between, yeah, for the town's open spaces, like you're saying, or in the land trust, right, like working together.
Right. And just the one thing that I want to learn more about is I just want to make sure that it doesn't become some sort of its own entity doing things that the town is not approving of. Like I just want to learn more about it, because the way I've heard about conservation commissions, I have a lot to learn. And just for your own, for what I think, your own information, I don't think it has necessarily an approval process or a power or anything like that. It's not like developers are going to come
You
to the
said advisory.
conservation commission.
Said
But you can-
advisory.
Yeah, but you can tell planning and zoning about like their purchases, or I see what it is.
Yeah, conservation commissions are generally commissions that are creatures of statute and allowed by Connecticut general statutes to conserve, supervise, regulate generally natural resources, in most cases, open space. Their charge comes from municipal limits by the governing body. So, I have to take a look at statutes again myself to see if powers and authority are within statutes. My guess is they should say something about that.
Yeah.
But the actual charge on what they're allowed to do from the Board of Selectmen and bylaws.
From a process point of view, I mean, I'd really prefer down the line we do an ordinance and look at it and create it and then add it to a charter. So similar to what we done Board of Fire, but it's really up to the board. If it's something that, I mean, I guess you have the purview to run and have it in, because it would go, the charter goes before the legislative body. And all it says in statute is the legislative body has to create it.
And you're right, many times we've had bodies that were created by ordinance, and then later, in a later charter revision commission, it says, okay, this is working, looks good, let's pull it in and make it a formal part of our charter.
Yeah, Sustainable Bethel is a good example. Fire commission is a good example. I think it's an easier way to work out the kinks.
Yeah.
Because if we start working on it and we find that it's not working for us, then we have a few years to
change. It was
get it go backwards. It's hard. Yeah. But I totally think it's something we should be considering.
Yeah, Nick, if you can come back next month and let us know what you've found in your research of conservation commissions.
Sure, I can tell what all this is, one of the statutory sections.
So if there are no other questions, thank you, Nico, for coming. Welcome to stay the whole day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
We're
for
about
having
to
us.
pain time, people that aren't part of the process. So,
I'm learning from you guys. I mean, I can give you your space. It's fun to, it's essentially.
You're welcome to stay.
I can't, that's why I can't keep you guys.
All right. So I'll just turn to, Mary, you have correspondence to review.
Didn't receive any correspondence.
Put that down.
We haven't received
Okay.
any correspondence.
And then, I take a motion to approve the minutes, consider the minutes from, October 9th.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
Tim, I thought that I could be wrong. I thought I just read a letter that had come in from Lisa Berg.
Yeah.
When it comes to commission.
Yeah.
That was, a couple of months ago.
Yeah, that was a while ago. Or at least-
Wasn't that Lisa?
It just popped up in my email.
Well, I think there might have been two. I thought there was one that discussed, appointments. And then I think there was another one with regard to salaries and how she pointed out two sections of the charter that really need to be linked.
This was a
That
separate
just
email.
came, right?
Yeah, it came on November 7th.
Right.
From Lisa Berg.
So did you get a copy?
Yeah, she wrote
The
down.
salaries one came.
Yes. So it's November 7th.
Right.
So did you see that, Mary, or?
I did not, but I
Okay.
will look for it.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we'll acknowledge, in correspondence that we received. It's like a memo from Lisa Berg regarding C10-9 salaries and
Attached to Mary.
No, it went to.
It's section
Alice Bay, John.
Alice B. Jones.
You're on here.
and it's not that long. I can read it.
He has it on.
Okay, so she says, I respectfully call your attention to a contradiction in the charter regarding the salary of the town clerk. C10-9 salaries. That was added 11/4/2014. Following the adoption of said charter revision effectuating the same, the Board of Finance shall set the annual salaries of the municipal officials, including registrar of voters, town treasurer, town clerk, selectmen, and first selectman during the budgetary process preceding the next election of said respective offices and annually thereafter during the terms. And then she lists section 23-1, salary authorized. The town clerk of the town of Bethel shall receive a salary in lieu of fees and other compensation provided for such statutes of the state of Connecticut, which shall from time to time be fixed by the legislative body of the town of Bethel. And so she's asking that C23-1 be revised to reflect C10-9.
Well, she's not saying which one she wants, just that they're in.
Well, yeah, so I would think the way to fix this is simply to have 23-1 refer back to 10-9 as to.
Dash 9 says the Board of Finance will set the salaries. And 23-1 says the legislative body of the town of Bethel.
Right. So she's pointing out a conflict.
Right.
And asking us to address it.
It's C-9, 10-9, what the other one, C what?
But the other one is C23. I'm wondering whether that's the code rather than,
What is C23?
is that the code instead of the charter?
Yeah, it must be.
23-1.
Yeah, where's 23-1 is the code?
I think it's the code.
Code of ordinances.
Yeah.
And the code of ordinances, the charter takes precedence for it, so.
So in the code of ordinances, it should refer back to the charter.
Well, what happens is it depends on the section. Sometimes it says whatever else the code provides. It doesn't say that on this section.
But it should be clear, there shouldn't be subjectivity depending on, well, you want to rely on this one today and the other one tomorrow. It should be clear as well.
Right. In practice, it's the C10-9, it's the Board of Finance that sets it.
That's always been the.
And when there's a conflict, it's, the charter takes precedent.
And revising the code is probably something that's on the to-do list, but that wouldn't be done within this commission.
Yeah.
And
All right, so then we just need to let her know that the charter takes precedence over the
so
code.
how is the code changed?
So the code is changed by Board of Selectmen process through that public hearing and the town meeting. Because it's an ordinance. But yeah, it says town clerk shall receive salary in lieu of fees, other compensation provided for general statutes of state of Connecticut, which salary shall be time bound fixed by the legislative body of the town of Bethel. The technical legislative body is town meeting, although there are some powers that rest with the Board of Selectmen. By the way, we should look at that too at some point.
But with charter being approved by the voters.
I think if charter takes precedence,
Yeah.
it
So-
looks like in 2014, they decided to change it.
Yeah.
And address that by changing the charter.
So the,
Is that was 2014? I don't
It's-
think 1970.
yeah, this is back in 1979.
Right.
Listen, the codes of town need a lot of work, and we're working on it. We're putting in an RFP to have a firm coming out and look at all codes, because they're very old, some of them, and we have all these little things like this that really should be changed or removed.
Yeah, and the whole issue about the 2014 change with 10-9, it was intended to have the salary set during the budgetary process.
Yeah.
As opposed to previously, it was being done in August, the middle of the summer, no one's around, no one's really paying attention. And so it was changed so that the people of Bethel could then see with some transparency, salaries being set as part of the budget.
Well, this says that during election year, when the town clerk is about to be elected, the salary is to be set before the election. And then annually thereafter during the term, it doesn't say when, just say annually.
So, no, it's during the budget process.
Only for the first time.
You're reading the current
Although
charter.
that's,
I'm reading the charter. It's
Current charter, yeah, basically we were looking to make an update, which is the red line version that Nick had sent out.
and Nick was
That's
the,
what I'm looking at, the one that was attached to the email from me.
I'm looking at that right now. There's a strike in following the adoption of said charter.
yeah, we've already discussed
Maybe
fixes to that.
I need to do this.
Let me just ask you something, I think it's obvious. None of these positions mentioned here are contractual, right? No, they're all like appointed.
They're all like, not appointed.
All like. I mean, if there's any, I don't know what brought our attention to this, but if there's any question, we could always add that, that charter shall prevail over the other references, ordinances.
Does it say that's the one in the code?
I'm sorry?
Does it say that in the code already? Does the code already say?
No,
the charter?
I think what everybody's saying here is that it's presumed that the charter is the highest level document. So therefore it prevails, but there may be a concern because there's, conflicting language or language is not exactly clear that, unless we feel totally, sure in the fact that charter prevails and that, referencing, the other, 23-1, that it would never be upheld because charter prevails, then we just say, okay, Lisa, thanks for pointing it out. If we feel that there's some validity to what she's trying to say, then I think that we should even further add language that says, in the event of a conflict, this prevails.
So I think what we're looking at is in her letter, she says, I respectfully call your attention to a contradiction in the charter regarding the salary.
Well, she thinks.
And she's treating it as though these are both in charter and they're not.
They're not. The code is ordinance that can be
Right.
repealed, should be repealed. It's a salaries code that only covers the town clerk somehow.
Yep.
That's kind of bizarre. From 1979.
Right, the charter voter, not the town clerk, selectmen, but then in the other one, it just says town clerk.
The town clerk in chapter 23 of the code.
There was probably a purpose behind it in 1979 that we don't have the legislative intent before us.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think as long
So
as
we can-
there's an overarching statement somewhere that the charter takes precedence, we don't have to say that in every place we find a discrepancy.
Does that say in the statute?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
If I look at the language.
I think we need to just let her know that it's okay. The charter takes precedence. And she can ignore what's in the code, but thank you for bringing it to our attention.
We should correspond with her, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, would that be appropriate?
yeah, we've already fixed that section, which I'm now looking at the corrected one.
Right.
That we fixed the typo and we said that annually it's going to happen during the budgetary process.
And that was the intention. I mean, if you think about it, you don't change charter to require something to happen one time and one time only.
Well, it was, no, it was, the way it was written before, it was, if it's an election year for the town clerk, we have to set the salary during the budgetary process. Next year, she's not up for reelection, we can set it anytime annually. It didn't say it had to be during the budgetary process. It makes sense that it is, of course.
Beyond that, when I was having discussions with the Board of Finance members, they were saying they just have to set it once and never again.
So when.
So she would never get a raise?
No, I mean, just, you could do it anytime during the year.
Right, right, that's how it was written before. And that's how it was in practice, because the salaries were not looked at individually during the budgetary process. Afterwards, sometimes in August, then they would settle the salaries and assume that they were covered in the budget that was approved.
So the whole purpose of that change was to kind of bring it out of August and bring it during the budgetary process, so the people who are voting on the budget know what's in the budget.
Right, and that makes sense. It's extra work, that makes sense.
Yep.
Extra work for Board of Finance.
Yeah, what I'd like to see is the Board of Finance in the past few years has started doing what the intent was. But I don't know whether you're really setting the salary or setting the increase. As I look at the minutes, it just reflects the increase rather than the total salary amount.
When they do it, they actually just set the salary and then that
Right,
governs the
it's
increase.
individual, they're not saying we're gonna get a
Yeah.
10% raise, they're saying this
No,
person.
it's by position.
This person is not gonna be that much.
Well, we still have a motion on the table to approve the minutes. Is there any more discussion of that? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain? Sorry.
Got it. And Tim, can you send me Lisa's email? I did not receive it.
I can send it over.
Okay.
Mary, I'll send it to you.
Anyways. So- All right, so at the last meeting, we spent quite a bit of time talking about the Board of Selectmen expanding to a 4-year term, expanding to a 5-member board. And I don't want us to get stuck on this before we continue on with other things. But one thing I did want to share with you is that in 2014, there was a charter revision that was broken up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different questions. And the question specifically about moving to a 5-member board and a 4-year term was posed, and the voters voted it down 50% to 46%. I mean, that 12%.
10 years ago.
It is 10 years. It is 10 years, but again, it's asking the same question again.
Well, it's a combined question though.
And this is a combined question. So again, I just, for information, Fred, these were the questions that passed, and there were actually 2 questions that got turned in. One more? Oh, one more. There we go. How many down here? 2 more. Here's 1, 2. Did you get one, Dan?
No.
More.
Good information, Tim. You know, this is the ballot. We asked the voters the same exact questions that we debated for an hour the other night, and this is exactly the information that is required to make a rational decision.
And yeah, it was bundled together, so we don't know in this, were they all against the 4-year term, or were they all against the 5-member board? But bundled together, as we were talking about the other night, the voters weren't in favor of it. And yes, it's been 10 years. And in 10 years, our population has grown from, well, like 1,273. We went from 19,264 in 2015 to 2023, we're at 20,537. So we've had some growth.
I think the demographic of the town has changed considerably in 10 years, so you just don't, there's no way until you try their minds.
I think bundling it is not smart. I mean, there's overwhelming, when you take people about a 4-year term. I have no idea how people really feel about 5 members. So, never know, so, except for this.
I mean, I think it's just hard to compare. I understand, I think it's valuable information, but I think comparing 2014 to the dynamics and everything that's going on in all the cities around, all the towns around here, it's just two different animals. But, and me personally, I'm not sold on either way, but I think the topic is worth, further discussion. I think we had good dialogue last time, the pros and cons. I've done a little more research on it. I've spoken to people in the region, Fairfield County, about it. And my research shows that so far, I can go on if you want me to. But Richfield, Stratford, Weston, Wilton, Westport, and Fairfield all have 4-year terms now, and most of those terms have been changed in the last 5-6 years, I believe. The other Fairfield County towns, at least I'm speaking only about Fairfield County, are at 2-year terms. And
Are you certain about that? I thought we were the only town in Fairfield County.
with 2-year,
Two-year terms.
No, everybody with the exception of Richfield, Stratford, Weston, Wilton, Westport have 2 years. Have 2 years.
Yeah, so the ones he read were the only ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, so only the ones he read are 4-year terms.
Right.
Everybody else is
And
conventional.
I think there's,
Yeah.
and the overwhelming comment that I got back was that the first selectman has, they're always in election mode. Their decisions, they won't say it outwardly, but, all the decisions they make, have something to do with whether or not they're going to be there next time based upon their opinion. And the 4-year term allows them to be more of a manager. Because they don't always have that election over their head. And that was kind of the overwhelming thing, because you can actually get things done. As we said, you get elected, first 6 months, you're getting your feet wet. Alex, you said your first year, right? Before you really understood.
Well,
the government.
truthfully, the first year on P and Z, certainly, but the first year, yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's still, I think it's still worth discussing. I would love to hear from people outside of our group as well, or.
And perhaps we could have a special hearing about that. I mean, but I know that we spent, and John mentioned an hour last time, and I think it might even been a little bit more. But we have a list of proposed items from the Board of Selectmen, and we made it down to the third one, and we're kind of talking over and over again. So I would like to see us kind of move on to the other proposals that the selectmen have. And then come back to the hard stuff.
What we did, we brought this out, and then we,
Right.
because we went to one to talk about.
No, this was a follow-up to the
This
last
is
meeting.
information that Tim researched after the fact because it was such a conversation.
So we have that. And unless there's something new to talk about that we didn't discuss last time, I think we could go on to other things that the Board of Selectmen proposed and then come back to this. We're going to be coming back to the advisory committee. That was something that we had tabled informally.
So where do you want to start?
Well, the next item on the proposed modifications to the charter from the selectmen was they had a lot of things that had been already approved or approved by the previous Charter Revision Commission. But the next one is C6-2 procedure. And in accordance to Robert's rules, the secretary would be elected, should be elected at a town meeting. Historically, the Bethel Town Clerk has served as secretary without an election by the town meeting. And the recommendation from the Board of Selectmen is change C6-2 to indicate that the town clerk serve as the secretary for the town meeting. And in the event that the town clerk is absent, the town clerk may choose a clerk pro tem. If unable to choose a clerk pro tem, the town meeting would then select one. So, and Dan, do you want to kind of leave this? This came from.
Yeah, so, Robert's rules is, we spell it out that Robert's rules is what governs the town meeting. In Robert's rules, it says you have to elect a secretary. And nowhere does it say the town clerk is normally a person. What I did it the right way last year, of course, we were going to elect a secretary, the town clerk. There was a little bit of pushback because she's, well, we always have the town clerk, because the town clerk is always the person who does it. In fact, there's a piece of statute where it says at a town meeting, the town clerk is absent, you may elect a town clerk pro tem. But there's nothing that says here that it has to be our town clerk. We can elect anybody. So it would stand to reason that we would just add a little piece in there and say, make it very clear, the town clerk will serve as the secretary in all town meetings. We don't even have to put the other part in, or we can, because it's in statute already, that if the town clerk is not there or can't be there, we can elect a pro tem. So either way, we could make it clear, which is probably better. It just makes sense to add that, just to kind of keep it above board.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I like the idea of having the town clerk named in the charter. Not so excited about authorizing her to then pick anyone she wants if she's not going to be there. I think it's to go back.
Yeah.
Yes, pro tem.
Meaning, you know, if she picks one of the other people in the office.
Right.
Oh, we don't have to put that part,
But we could,
but we should put
something
something in there, because I think the statute says that the town, maybe it says the town should take a look at that. Are you looking at that?
No, if
There might
the-
be a chance.
Yeah,
So I looked at-
C6-2.
Yeah, C6. So I will say that if you look at the current charter, and the official rules for procedure for any town meeting shall be Robert's rules of order.
Right.
In Robert's rules of order, it says you have to elect a secretary. Nowhere does it say the town clerk serves. So I basically went through the motions and elected the town clerk the first time I did this. I think we should just spell it out. The town clerk can serve as the secretary for all town meetings.
and if the town clerk is not available, can't serve, then the town meeting can pick a clerk.
That's fine. Then we probably should say that.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, what we could do is say that she can recommend
Well,
yeah,
a pro tem.
wait, one of the things that would make this, the town clerk may choose a clerk, pro tem would, from an administrative standpoint, if you have one of the other clerks in her office take the minutes, they go back to the office with her. So it's already easily, you don't then have to turn around and have somebody else file them. I mean, yeah, I think it was just a matter of expediency that they said this, just so that whoever it is in the office that works with her brings it back to the office and
You're talking about the recommendation.
the recommendation.
So,
Or
and
the-
I think it was purely utilitarian.
right, and that's fine.
It's what the
I just don't
statute
think
says.
opening it up that she can pick anyone she wants.
it doesn't.
No, it doesn't say that. It says choose a clerk pro tem.
It does say,
Yes, but it doesn't say the clerk pro tem can be anybody.
okay, so
It's not necessarily someone from her office.
let me read the statute.
Yeah.
Section 721, town clerk pro temporary. When the town clerk is absent from any town meeting, such town meeting may choose a clerk pro tem. Pro temporary. So if we just put, if we require our town clerk to be there, which I think is the right thing to do. If she's not there, the town clerk picks somebody, or excuse me, the town meeting.
Town meeting.
Okay.
According to the statute,
Cross out,
The members of the
Yeah.
town meeting,
the town
the
meeting.
board.
The town.
Well, the town,
The town.
but it's all gonna be a group.
If you like what Robert rules say, we nominate such and such for the secretary.
Get rid of the town clerk.
The town may choose,
Yeah.
The town meeting.
Town meeting may choose, right?
If the town clerk is absent, the town will select, the town meeting will elect one.
Yeah.
So you get rid of the town clerk all the way to pro tem.
Right.
Well,
I don't know, I just feel like it's better for the town clerk to appoint.
Say for some reason
Somebody goes in and takes
that
minutes.
person isn't there, that they
There.
decide to take the minute.
Well, I mean, that's,
Say the person who they thought was gonna
I
take
think
it
that's a
doesn't,
really valid point.
isn't there.
I like it, but the way it's written here. Anyway, it doesn't have. to
Well,
be-
that's fine.
Hope the person is there.
If that's not their way, find somebody else. And that's the whole point, by the way, these town meetings are planned. You plan to have people there to do these roles. It's not gonna be like, we're gonna just pick you.
I'm just thinking, when you're relying upon the public rather than who's ever running that meeting.
Yeah.
In the town meeting, can get well funky.
Right, I like the idea of how it was written in one of his statements where if the town clerk can't be there, the town clerk appoints someone to take her place. Because at that point, the town clerk is then, selecting somebody who already knows how to take minutes and who is a professional.
Exactly.
As opposed to just opening up to the floor, hey, would so-and-so like to come up and take minutes?
But you realize that doesn't really happen in practice. In practice at a town meeting,
But it could.
yeah. Rare, because the chair should be putting forth the name,
Right,
and then that person actually gets voted on first.
right.
I don't think there's gonna be, I guess
Well,
there'll be a hoopla.
But
who takes the
like you
minutes.
said, though, these meetings are
Yeah.
scheduled far in
Yeah,
advance, and unless the town clerk calls in, that morning. they
But see, then
know
if what happens if the
meetings
town clerk
because
doesn't
They have time. They have time to.
What happens if the town clerk doesn't appoint one?
Well,
Do we cancel the meeting?
No, it had that third point of, if unable
Yeah.
to choose a clerk pro tem, the town meeting will elect.
There we go. It
So
falls
it
into
was,
that.
if it's the town clerk, will suggest one. And really what we could
it
say
should
is
be
suggest,
suggest one.
they
And then let
suggest
the
a clerk.
town, let the town meeting vote on the
Yes.
recommendation.
Because she'll pick somebody from her office that knows how to take minutes.
That
Right.
sounds a little
That's
more
important.
secure.
Yeah.
So in the event the town clerk is absent, the town clerk may suggest or recommend a clerk pro tem.
And,
If unable to choose a clerk pro tem, the town meeting will elect one.
If I
well,
was to
you
recommend.
could cross that first part out and say may recommend a clerk pro tem
That's what I said.
for the town meeting to elect or consider. So she would make the recommendation, but the town meeting would vote on that recommendation.
Okay.
I can't remember the last time we didn't have a town clerk at the annual town meeting, but that's the whole purpose of the charter.
And the town meeting is probably going to be recorded anyway, correct?
Consider people.
Huh?
Yeah. Consider-
So if there's any real issues with the minutes, obviously the tape is there to, validate or it's the record.
Yeah, taking minutes is not a casual thing. You
No.
really have to have skill.
Yeah,
It's public record.
it's not easy.
Do we have consensus
So-
on that one?
So we all have consensus on that? If so, we can move on to 60-3. And Dan, if you have that's with regard to the annual town budget meeting and the transaction of business.
6-3.
Yes.
All right.
Gotta go for find the original recommendation before I got to this sheet. I think it was just to rename the meeting, the annual town meeting. Or no, we're back to this. That's a great letter.
That requires each town to hold an annual town meeting for the transaction of business proper to come before such meeting.
I think the issue was in our charter, is it referred to, it's referred to annual town budget.
Yes, it is.
We should call it annual town meeting. Because, you could have somebody argue that we're not able to do business along with the budget at a town meeting. Charter, basically, we're required to have an annual town meeting. That's the rule. But if you call it annual town budget meeting, the question is, if somebody raised a point that we're not allowed to do the other business. We actually, we kind of discussed this, I guess it was this past budget, because at the time we had other things on the ballot in the meeting. And there was a moment where we paused and said, wait a second, are we legal? Is this what we're calling this a budget meeting?
But all the section below it talked about the budget. So we may need to wordsmith this as well.
Right, we may have to add something about other business, or just to make sure that when we have an annual town meeting, we can do other business. It was just one of those things that came up that just kind of, we looked at it, it was like, it just didn't flow.
Yeah, I think changing the name to annual town meeting makes sense, but I think we then we need to state that the primary purpose of the annual town meeting is to set the budget.
And the other piece, if you look at number 5, so look at, I'm sorry, A5. This was part of it, I think.
A5,
No, I'm sorry, what we're looking at,
we're looking at C63.
C6,
3A5.
C63A, number 5.
Yeah.
The adjournment,
Yeah, so read that.
Oh,
when the proposed budget has been approved as submitted or revised, the budget meeting shall automatically be adjourned for final vote and approved by the budget referendum.
So we actually changed around we were looking at changing around the actual things that we did during the meeting because of this piece. It was because it basically says, once we do the vote on the budget, we've had an automatic adjournment. We couldn't do it in the business. Right? If you wanted to, technically, and you wanted to add
Because
on,
the town meeting adjourns to the referendum.
right, but we still had other business.
But if there's other business, you can't do it if you're adjourning. It's
But then-
Adjourn.
But then you actually,
you have to do all your other business before you talk about the budget.
Right.
well,
So you have to vote on, you'll be able to do the tax receipts. You have to be able to, all the other stuff that you got to do as part of that whole list of items that you do in a town meeting.
Yeah, we do
And
that.
this little technicality is in here where it's like, oh, well, if you see what I mean? Because of this with an automatic adjournment, then you can't do any other business. So this reads. And I don't think that's the intent or what it should be.
I do think it's the intent and what you may want to consider. I don't know whether it should be or not. It may just be how you form your agenda. You know, as long as you have the budget as the last thing, so that you don't ever adjourn a town meeting. You recess to a vote.
Well,
So
here's
you have
the-
It says we adjourn
You
this.
adjourn.
And it does say adjourn here.
We don't
Yeah.
ever adjourn a
No,
town meeting.
it's always recessed.
So
Well,
that's,
we should probably talk about that too.
because that's Robert's rules. You recess your town meeting.
Yeah.
You know, I've moderated enough of them and been corrected many times.
Yeah.
You recess them to the referendum. So it's one solid meeting. It's the town meeting is the first half of the same meeting that the referendum is. It's
So that-
one thing. So you
that
don't,
five,
so once in a while, the Board of Selectmen had to open up their own meeting afterwards and conduct other business.
And often they open it up to set the hours of the referendum. Almost every time.
The board selected.
Or it's like,
Yeah, but I'm talking about just the town meeting
I'm
part.
just saying a town meeting.
We could.
If you have
This
other
town
actions,
meeting, because it adjourns to a referendum, can't take up any other business
Even recesses.
because it recesses,
Right.
excuse me, to a referendum. So
So
we
Which-
cannot
which-
take anything else up.
Which is my point, because I don't think it should be an automatic adjournment or an automatic recess. It should, we
No.
should do it that we should do all the business we need to do in a town meeting, and then we recess for for the referendum.
Yeah,
But you
if
can
you
do all
handle
the-
the budget items.
You don't make it
last.
automatic, you don't.
And then you do the, but yes.
Yeah.
It's not automatic, though. You have to actually, but there then needs to be
Yeah.
wording with that recess that this budget is being recessed to a referendum, not just this meeting is being recessed to a
yeah, the way this is written now, we've been adjourning, because it happened automatically.
referendum.
No, you're right that we recess, but the charter
this
still
language.
says adjourn.
Right. Based on this language,
Well, that's
we've
gotta
been
go anyway,
incorrectly
because
adjourning
Robert's
without even
rules.
trying to.
Well, yeah, I don't know how much is actually directed by statute and Robert's rules.
It is, it's
Yeah.
definitely in Robert's rules. It's solid.
Because adjourning, you're ending the meeting, it's over.
right.
Yep.
So.
No, can't do it.
And we're not adjourning the entire meeting, because there might be other business. We're adjourning this particular piece of the budget piece.
No, but
And you
the
raise a
meeting's
good point.
adjourned.
So how do you adjourn the first part of it?
Well, that's the issue, because if you look at every way we've done this in the past, and looking at this is the annual town meeting for this past year, this year, 2024. The first thing is consider the resolutions for the budget. And then it's, appropriations for the Board of Finance annual education budget. So two things, right? Then there's, you go through a couple things, but then we got to the fire truck, right? We did, money for this tax stabilization fund, all important things. Consider that we had to do, sales from Trowbridge Drive, right? We put that, we put it in interest-bearing
They're all
account.
budgetary items, yes?
Right.
No, that's not a budgetary item per se. It's not part of the budget. It authorizes the first selectman treasurer town to borrow short-term notes. That's something that happens every time because
Yeah.
if something happens and the budget gets delayed and put down, we gotta be able to run the town. Right? So that's in there, but that's not part of the actual budget because that's not the appropriation. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So there are other things that we do. I just want to make sure we,
So
But there is
Listed in here.
specific wording that you.
Yeah.
You recess the budget to a referendum. So if it's said that way, does that not allow?
if you
that
recess,
kind-
no, if we recess or adjourn a meeting.
I think
either
we
way,
just
you can't.
changed one word in this. If we change this to say, right now it says the budget meeting shall automatically be adjourned for final vote and approval by the budget referendum. Change that to say the budget meeting shall automatically be recessed for final vote and approval by the budget referendum.
I would, I was,
Now there's no automatic ending.
I would strike.
You
the
still
vote
have to
on
adjourn the meeting.
I would strike vote on the five. Because you have to adjourn a meeting at some point.
Except
Unless
this-
we,
Right, well,
there's
if
no
you- if you
reference
take
to
that out-
the machine vote though.
okay, then you should put something in effect that when the when the annual town meeting is recessed,
Recess.
it's recessed to the.
Recess to the
It's
budget
bookend.
referendum vote. Machine,
yeah.
and probably want to say
That way,
machine.
that way the town meeting is still open. So
It's still open and what finishes that town meeting is the referendum.
Oh, so we can't even adjourn the town meeting, even if there's other business.
According to house, this is not.
It stays open.
So my point is do you need two meetings? I mean, I don't know whether you need two meetings at the same time.
No,
Technically, I don't think
no.
other towns do. I mean, there's gotta, we don't.
This is not rockets. I don't want to overthink it. I just want to kind of tweak it to
I
make it
know, I just don't want to.
do what we actually do. The automatic adjourning thing was probably the biggest part of it. We should probably call it the annual town meeting. And once the budget or whatever, once the business is concluded, the town meeting is recessed
Yeah.
to the budget referendum.
Yeah, we could take out automatically, take out
Yeah.
adjourn, substitute
Yeah.
recess for final vote.
And
And I
then
don't
you'll
know if you
look at
want
that to make sure we're not,
Add the final
Yeah, I'll
machine
look
on anything.
I'll look at the stats.
I apologize. That's not my call.
Under
I
Robert's
bet
rules,
officio that should come from the chair.
under Robert's rules, does recessing refer to the whole meeting or to an agenda item on the meeting?
Town meeting is recessed to a referendum.
Okay, so it refers. to the whole
When you
meeting.
recess, you don't recess for an agenda item. You recess the meeting. It's keeping it open.
I think we're splitting hairs and I don't know whether they have to be legally split. Whether it's an issue or not. Because the referendum only
Yeah.
includes that part of it that needs to be voted on.
Right.
What I have a problem with is that this is a kind of ambiguity that could create trouble. Imagine somebody coming to a town meeting, wanted to cause a ruckus. And they say, what I mean, you can't do all those things because the minute you voted on the budget, you were supposed to adjourn.
Yeah.
Now we're in
Oh,
some
no,
sort
I
of,
agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the recess,
Right.
how much of the meeting
Yeah.
we can have in the recess issue, whether it applies to the whole meeting or whether it just applies to the budgetary.
when you recess the meeting, you recess the meeting. That's it.
So you
That's
mentioned
what I-
something.
Yeah.
A minute ago about, maybe having two meetings and maybe we call this the annual town meeting and annual budget meeting. We do all the other stuff first, we adjourn that, now we open the budget meeting and then we can leave this.
So why complicate that? We are completely allowed to have our own town meeting and construct it how we want.
And the town meeting.
We're just
vote
required to have a
early
town
vote.
meeting.
Well, I'm just wondering how all those other items are affected because they're being recessed to a referendum
We're
as
gonna
well.
have to wordsmith the whole annual town budget.
Yeah.
Section. If they change the annual town meeting.
Right.
If there's a speaking to the budgetary process that happens at the annual
Right.
town, in this instance, budget meeting. I don't think you want that to go away. But I'm just reading, there are some cleanups that would have to be.
I believe the state statute is pretty clear. We have to have an annual town meeting. And it talks about taking care of the budget.
Or a town meeting form of government for God's
Right, we
sake.
have to have an
We
annual
have
town
to
meeting.
have-
Right.
I think along the way, they've just called this the budget meeting. And when I looked at it, I was like, wow, but does that mean then you can't do anything else? Because in this last piece here, it makes it sound like you can't do other things that you need to do, even if it relates to the budget. So that's when I saw this, I'm like, you know, I want to bring it up and figure it out as a group, because, you know, it's very clear that we should have the power to do what we need to do in town. And whether we recess it, if that's the appropriate term.
But what I'm wondering is, if the whole meeting contains other things, the stuff that you talked about voting on.
Yeah.
But then we recess the meeting until the referendum.
Yeah.
Does that mean all those things are still open until the referendum is done and they can't be acted on?
They've already been
Well,
voted on. Each item was
Then
already
they've been
voted on.
recessed.
You have
technically.
that- it's everything on the budget
been voted
Yeah, because if you're not adjourned.
But then it's not acted on.
But
It's just.
what constitutes the legal action?
Right.
I believe it's the vote that constitutes the legal action, if it does in legislative world. Because there are plenty of times you recess to something else. But the vote you take is binding. Unless, of course, you come back the next time and you reconsider. all that.
Yeah.
Right, I want to make sure that somebody can't say, oh, no, you can't spend the money today because we haven't had the referendum yet. So
Right.
it's still open. It's not.
But the recessing to the budget part, I have to leave that to you, Dick, because whether it's a recess or adjournment or. A lot of these things, we've done them the same way for many, many years, and
Precedent, right?
the precedent is what rules. When you take a fresh look at it and you start going, wait, why have we always done it that way? Because Robert rules doesn't necessarily say we have to.
Yeah,
Right.
it's the
And
language.
we do want to make sure that.
Yeah.
Just because we've always done it that way, we want to make sure that the written word agrees with how we've always done it, so that somebody can't come back and say, maybe you can't do that anymore. We love those little gotcha.
I hate those gotchas.
The same too.
Yeah,
And my concern is yours, and which is Karen's, is that if we all have, let's say everybody votes yes on every single item, just pretend. And then the last half of what we vote on is the budget, and we recess the meeting. Those first items are also still voted on, but they haven't been,
Closed. But the meeting is not closed,
but the meeting's not
and you're
closed.
only recessing the budgetary items, not the other stuff that might.
Well, when
How
you
is
recess
that-
the meeting, you're just
mechanically, how
recessing.
does that work?
When you recess the meeting, you're not recessing an agenda item. You're literally just stopping the meeting for that period of time.
Well, you're putting that meeting on hold until it's been voted on. So which does it, by the nature of what we're asking, flow to the question, or does, otherwise we could all just sit there and vote the budget as a group of people.
Well, that,
I mean, the flip side of that is, why is the yes vote not just voting in the budget? Because we have a referendum. So why?
so if we
So
go
the
through
capital
that,
campaign that we do,
Yes.
why is that yes vote okay? Does it go with referendum? What's the mechanics of that?
well, the only thing that goes referendum is the actual budget.
I agree with you, but the other ones are still open.
But they're not open.
Yeah,
I don't believe that.
but so's the budget.
The minute you vote on something,
I'm
the meeting,
just playing devil's
it
advocate.
passes.
I think
The
that-
meeting doesn't have to be, the meeting doesn't have to end or close to take away your vote.
And they're not, I
So-
think they're
So
voting,
everything's been voted on yes.
but they're
Not
voting.
necessarily, what if there's something that's not?
Shall we adopt this for the town of Bethel? Yes.
Yes,
Okay, that's adjourned to a referendum. But shall we do this other thing by capital improvement? Yes.
That
then
doesn't
it has,
require the
doesn't
referendum.
require a referendum.
I'm playing devil's advocate. Why not?
Because the charter requires the budget to go to referendum. The charter doesn't require everything to go to referendum.
right. But according to Robert's Rules of Order, because the meeting is technically still open until the referendum ends, are all those things actionable or not? If we voted on capital improvement, could you hear that yes vote and immediately go out and write a check?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, then we're all right. But I'm
That's,
sure about that.
but
That's my
that's just
question.
raising the
Yeah.
question because it has been raised a lot. No one's quite,
What do we gotta do to clean it up?
Yes,
We gotta have
exactly.
some simple language to do that and maybe
legal language.
If we just
clean it up.
kind of singular extract out the budgetary items are the ones that are recessed. But then I guess on that same point, then you're gonna adjourn part of the meeting and then recess the rest.
It's not tidy.
Prior to adjournment, all votes taken on items that are outstanding.
You don't have to end the meeting for the votes to not count. You can keep a meeting open and you can recess it.
Wasn't the ask to say this,
Yeah.
you wanted to
But
be
then-
titled a town meeting, not a budget meeting?
I wouldn't call it a meeting.
So that it could
Because this-
include all of the other items. That's all we're trying to
Yeah,
debate.
that's.
No, it's whether, when we vote at the end, everybody's, let's pretend that all these other items are voted on, and we've said yes. And then you go through the budget items and they say yes. When you adjourn to a referendum, what happens to these where's the statute that says these can be acted on? Because what you've done is you've taken that whole meeting and moved it to a referendum.
The fact that, the capital item only needed a vote at a town meeting, not at a referendum.
I want to know, I just want to see where it's written, that's, we've assumed that that's true.
So
I didn't think you were thinking that deep, Alan. I thought that everybody was okay with that. A fire truck capital item at that town meeting could be a vote and everything could be.
It is, but we've raised the question as to what recess means.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with you.
The open items.
But I think the main.
But that's not open up, it's a voted on, right?
But-
Voted on items are voted on items, done.
That
That's why I
doesn't
don't-
apply to the budget in the same meeting.
No, it does. It 100% does. It means that the town meeting approved the budget. That's it. Town meeting approved the budget. What happens next in the process? It goes to referendum.
So, okay, so let's take that.
So how do you bifurcate your agenda?
You don't have to. What I'm saying, I don't believe you have to. That's
That's the only thing that.
because like right now, we have other things, like even establishing the date. Like if we read this, we couldn't bother establishing a date for the machine vote because we already approved the budget.
Yeah.
That's silly.
I'm not
But that's
trying
what
to
I'm
make
trying
it
to-
more complicated.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make it foolproof.
I mean, anywhere else I've seen in anything where you take a meeting, you can make decisions in the meeting. The minute you have a vote on something, that is the vote. So then you don't have to adjourn the meeting to make the vote real.
Dan, I'm agreeing with you
Yeah.
100%. That's not the issue.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure it was foolproof.
Yeah.
And that's the point I think all of us are raising is, I don't want somebody to come in late and muck with it.
Which is the whole reason I brought it up.
Right.
Because right now it's to make a buck with it.
No,
Yeah,
I think we're good. I think that calling it an annual town meeting allows us to have other agenda items besides the budget. And I think we've determined that the fact that this meeting doesn't adjourn doesn't affect those other things that are voted on. Once the vote is taken,
Yeah.
you could go write that check right now.
and that's something
And
that
as long as that is true, as long as we're sure that's true,
I can double check.
it's a border thing.
we should look into this adjournment versus recess issue, just to make sure that somewhere out there it says it the way we're supposed to do it.
Because we've always called that, we called it a job.
We called it adjourn, I've heard it called
I
recess.
Yeah,
think
for
it
years
was by
we've
the
said
best.
yeah,
So,
recess.
every lawyer that has spoken to me, you do remember that you're going to adjourn instead of recess this meeting, yes?
You mean recess instead of adjourn.
Recess.
I mean, recess. Yes, never mind.
How long is this within the charter? It's been a while.
That's why they remind me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes back to the late eighties.
The budget, annual town meeting section goes back to, I believe, early eighties.
That would be Clifford.
There's been various amendments of this section.
When was
Was Jane judge of probate back then? Yeah, Dan was judge of probate back then. Jane.
I'm not sure.
Jane
Shannon.
Shannon is technically. I was in the old asbestos room building.
Okay.
So if we, kind of through with that section, the next section that was proposed by, yes?
I'm sorry, we just closed that. What are we going to do with it? Are we waiting for?
Nick's gonna give us more information.
Okay.
Nick's gonna give us more information.
Clarification.
He can do drafting of changes
Okay.
for our consideration. But we don't have to wordsmith right here,
Right.
everything. But, so the next item you know, in the proposal, there were a lot of things that were already approved or recommended by the prior Charter Revision Commission. And we had gone through and agreed with them in nearly every case. Sometimes we added to it. But one thing that's new is the Fire Commission. I don't know whether you want
What
to,
number are you
I
looking at?
definitely,
7-5.
I definitely make a comment about that.
And, you know, I think there's probably a lot of things we're all gonna want to know about that, but
So,
certainly can start.
so with the fire commission, the board of fire commission was created kind of as an ad hoc. And really to look over budgeting items, you know, things like that, you know, basically the oversight of the fire department to be advisory board to the board of selectmen. One of the issues that has come up with it, if you notice, what I had put forth about establishing, number one, we should establish as part of the charter. I believe it should be an appointed commission, not necessarily an elected commission, because that, it's hard to get enough people on anyway. One thing that I had added was, I had added excluding firemen. Because what's happened on the commission has just become about firemen now. I tried to have an equal number of firemen from both departments. And it's not really a taxpayer oversight or a taxpayer on board to give good information to the board of selectmen. With that said, I've given it a lot of thought. We probably should leave any first selectman who, if they want to appoint somebody who's a fireman, they can appoint a fireman. Right? You should, I think it really should just be not overboard, like I had originally written it. What I said was, what I put, it should be a 5-member commission, right? Take out all the fire stuff, and there should be 2 ex officio members representing each fire department. And the chiefs are allowed to come too, by the way. The chiefs, just like anytime you do the police commission, you have members of the fire department, they're advocating for what they need. And the chiefs are usually there to talk about the budget issue, policy issues, whatever.
So you'd have 2 from Stony Hill and 2 from downtown.
No,
No,
you would just have 2 ex officio members, one representing.
Oh,
each
1 from
department.
each. And so the other 3 would be rank upon civilians.
No, there would be 5 members.
Right.
No, the
Right,
fire.
so
the
let's
fire chiefs are
kind of go through your recommendation, and then
Right.
we can get your modifications from there. It says, the board of selectmen shall appoint, in accordance with the provisions of this charter, a fire commission consisting of 5.
Where's mine?
I look at
Okay, got it. Never mind.
Consisting of 5 voting members, each of whom shall have never served as a firefighter. Now the comments later.
That's what I'm talking about now.
And each shall serve a 4-year term. And why don't we can stop right there. And so you're saying, get away from that, because
I'm saying, yeah, I'm saying
you're handcuffing yourself.
we're handcuffing a future first selectman. And if I don't feel like having firemen on the board is something that we should have, then that's up to me to determine as I have my ability.
Yeah.
When those appointments come up. Because I think it needs to be taxpayers that we trust and have oversight, and it shouldn't just be a bunch of firemen.
Because it's no longer an advisory committee.
Right, so it's no longer advisory board, and that's the way it was kind of, it was created. So what it should be is the board of selectmen shall appoint in accordance with provisions of the charter, a fire commission consisting of 5 voting members, and each shall serve a 4-year term. In addition, the board of selectmen shall appoint 2 non-voting ex officio members to represent the 2 fire departments. The 5 commissioners shall serve overlapping terms. The ex officio members shall serve for a period not to exceed 4 years, at which time the fire department representative shall be subject to reappointment. I added a C, said commission shall have the powers and duties that are now or may hereafter be conferred upon by said commission or by the Connecticut General Statute, Special Acts and Local Ordinances. Because what we do is we write the ordinance now to do things that, like how we're going to regulate the board. That's an ordinance, and that can be changed over time without going back to the charter. So I just think taking all the information out about like how many firemen are on it and all that was pretty short-sighted on my part.
Well, the
And I
other,
was reacting to what we were
but the
doing.
other thing I was thinking in there is who have never served as a firefighter, and I think you meant in Bethel. You could have people who live in Bethel who serve
Yes
as a
and no.
firefighter
Yeah,
elsewhere.
well, yes and no. I mean,
Yeah.
I was not looking for firefighters at all,
Yeah.
at all.
Right.
Because
Are you trying to prohibit firefighters?
that's what I was looking at. Yes, I was going to prohibit firefighters from
But
being
we're
there.
kind of backing off of that.
But I'm backing off of that. I'm trying to make this very clear. The
But
reason,
Tim's point.
no, but the reason we did it, the reason I was pushing that direction is firefighters as a group, right? They're all firefighters. We saw that with a recent study they came in and they talked about the NFPA standards and all that, and the fire trucks. There's a real feeling that they all just kind of work together. And they look at the equipment part of this and say, we got to buy the equipment, got to buy the equipment, got to buy the equipment. You need community advocates to understand and learn about the fire department, to be there
Have common sense and make a rational.
and make a rational, and
Right.
then give their advice to the board of selectmen.
Yes.
What's happening
Which was the original.
should have been, but what happens is this commission takes so much time because now I have to really do all the work that the taxpayer should be doing on that board to give us good advice. Because, now I know that all the information is coming, it's just strictly through one lens.
Mhm.
And that's what I was trying to prevent.
Not following.
If I have all firefighters on there, whether
Right.
they're,
You don't want that.
I don't want that.
Nobody wants that, right?
I don't think it's a great idea,
Right.
but at the same time, I think it really should be up to the first selectman in office to make those appointments, because if I say, yeah, there's somebody who used to be a firefighter down in Norwalk, and they're a taxpayer here, and the board of selectmen says, yeah, this is probably a good choice because of the experience, well, then we should probably go with that. I shouldn't handcuff somebody in the charter to say they couldn't do that.
Well, the idea of having 2 out of 5 as firefighters is very good.
No, they're not part of the 5.
That's additional voters.
Right.
They just get their votes in.
My big concern is really you've got to have enough citizenry to oversight, just like you say. So how do you, I mean, the ex officio or firefighters, but
But they don't have a vote. I mean, you could do a 7-member board. 2 ex
No, no, no.
officio. I mean,
No.
Okay, guys, can I just,
Okay.
I'm jumping in. I have a problem with a commission that does not include voting members who know what they're talking about. And whether it is police, fire, I don't know, EMT, I'm just throwing this out.
Public site and building.
Let's say you have, a doctor's commission or a dentist's commission. I think that I believe that there should be minimum, if possible, of 2 of these voting members should be firefighters. And I don't care if they're firefighters in Bethel. I don't care if they're firefighters in the middle of Oshkosh, but these are people that know what it is to be literally in the trenches. 2 out, let's say that we go with 5 voting members. 2 does not constitute a majority. They're never going to be a majority. And I would hate to not have the expertise of a professional.
It's an
So that's
oversight
the
committee. They're taking testimony from the fire chiefs that are running the department now, and they're making reasonable decisions based as a taxpayer oversight committee to do the best for the town of Bethel.
And
But you
John,
said-
that assumes that firefighters can't do that.
Well,
That is.
you ought to watch a couple meetings.
That assumes a certain level of incompetence and collusion, I hate that word, on the part of people that are professionals. If you
No,
have 2
no.
people that-
I take
not.
issue with that because
It's not it.
I am not assuming that they're colluding. I'm not assuming
But
that they're
that's-
people.
but
You said
I
it's one
understand, but
lens.
I'm saying
That's
one lens.
I
It's one
understand.
lens.
But
But
that's
I'm not
what-
saying that I don't believe in them or I don't trust them. I'll put that on record.
Okay,
But you
Absolutely.
just said I was,
no, I'm referring to what John had said.
No, then I'll take offense to it, Penny, because that's not where I was going. There needs to be an oversight committee where different people are looking at the same situation and might make 2 different decisions, looking through 2 different lenses.
Which is why, if you have 3 people that are lay people and 2 that are not, then you automatically have this mixture, this blend of people, some of whom are lay and some of whom are professional.
The first selectman just said he changed his opinion on what he originally drafted because he looked at it a different way. But in 8 years, there might be a different situation where it doesn't look well for the taxpayer. So the selectman gets a chance to appoint a different person to the committee. Right now, there's appointments, but there's no end dates. So if you get the wrong group of people in there, you never get to get them out unless they resign.
You want, can I make a
No,
suggestion?
but currently you don't have that ability.
Penny's made a really good point about having people on that group. I mean, we're talking about 5 people and 2 ex officio non-voting members. So first of all, you do have advisory into the
Right.
group. That's fine. Very possibly you could say that you could have a maximum of 1 or 2 firefighters on that. You could set a maximum so that you always have a minimum of whatever it is you want, whether it's 3 or 4. And then you allow 1 person from it, or 2, 1 or 2, you could allow 1. So these 2 over here are non-voting. But you'd still have,
Yeah, they
you
could,
need to make sure.
we've already dropped that out. We dropped out that language, said they never served as a firefighter.
Well,
So now there
Yeah,
is.
but I think you figure out what she wants to go further and say you mandatory should have 2 firefighters on.
Yeah, Nancy's.
Right.
it's
I
my
don't,
mother's name.
I still think, you give the board of selectmen.
Ellie's way of saying that.
Because the other thing is sometimes you can't find a firefighter who wants to serve on the board. And you don't have a police officers.
But you don't want the whole 5.
But you don't want the whole 5.
To be firefighters, because you
Right.
don't get what John's talking about with the
Yeah.
perspective of the general
That's the point, that's so, yeah,
Ceiling on the number of
public. A ceiling
firefighters.
is the number of firefighters that can serve
that's okay.
As voting members.
as voting members.
Yeah. But that's.
But do you still
Yeah,
want
I-
2 ex
Joe,
officio?
another point.
Well, I still think the ex officio are kind of important because that's the departments want to have somebody there for sure. That gives the ex officio member there that has the right to talk to the board. And it also gives the fire chiefs, because they're the ones who are coming in all the time to talk to.
But then are you saying that the 5 non-ex officios,
No, 5.
Voting members.
5 voting
voting
members could be current firefighters?
They could,
No.
So right now they could.
No, well, what I'm saying is,
or you can say.
I want to
the
think
max.
about putting a cap on that 5.
Right.
With the 2 still being allowed as non-voting ex officio members, but a cap on the 5 be a 1 or 2, whatever we.
Yeah.
That was just my.
I
So
see.
John's trying to say something.
Joan. Sorry, Joan.
I'd like to have a turn.
Well,
Thank
yes,
you.
trust me.
I've been trying to clarify this to my mind, and I was reading it before I came here. And I did talk to a nephew of mine who is a firefighter in another town. We have a unfortunate experience of having 2 departments. And I think this all stems from having 2 departments. And there is some level of competition between the 2.
Yes.
And that's probably one of the many reasons why this has been suggested. So I think we have to take that into consideration. This is a mitigating commission. It's supposed to make peace between the 2 and negotiate between the 2, not raise more issues. Now, I see it as taxpayers coming in who have a neutral view, who can learn from their experience. We're not telling them how to fight fires. They have all that information. We know that from the men who came in and spoke to us, and we know it intuitively. They're trained, they have the regulations, they're under state statute, they have stats and all, and that is taken care of. What we're looking at, I think, is how do we get them to work together financially? You get a fire truck one time, you get it another time. You raise funds in your department, congratulations to you. You get the ambulance. You raise funds in your department, good for you, you sold candy, etc. All right, but we have this oversight committee watching what's going on, checking maybe some of the old equipment that needs to be replaced, and look at the stories of buildings up in Stony Hill on Route 6. You better have equipment there to take care of those people when they move in. So I don't think we need any firefighters on it, except as ex officio. I think the intent is, I see it, and I may be wrong, but I've been trying to think about it, It's just to kind of mitigate, help them work together. You know, you're doing a good job, you're doing a good job. But let's see what the voters need to know about both of these departments. More
That's your question.
financially.
So Joan, I would just want to follow up with that, and thank you for your comments.
It was
I mean, we have other examples, particularly on public site and building, where for a particular project, they'll have, for the firing range, they have police on that commission as non-voting, but advising the board. For a school project, they'll have Jeremiah, and he'll be on there, but non-voting. So you're getting the advice, but it's all coming through the public site and building. And they make the decisions.
And a Board of Education member doesn't have to be a teacher, you know, so that works. Their oversight,
Their Board of
their,
Education, are the teachers precluded? Are teachers precluded?
No,
from being-
No, that's an elected board.
Yeah.
So it's different than appointed.
And that's why I came back and said, okay, I shouldn't preclude it. Because it's probably wrong, because they're tying the hands of the future first selectman. Any decision should be made by, yeah, anyway, please.
Okay, I'm going to ask, Selectman a few questions to start with, so I can form based to the history. Is it proper to say that prior to the formation of this fire commission, each fire agency would be asked to put a proposal together, and then they would present it to the selectmen?
Budget proposal.
Budget proposal.
Yeah, they still do.
Okay.
They still do.
And so then.
Combined meeting.
Okay, so there would be kind of an informal kind of discussion, hey, what do you want? Well, what can we give? This is my idea about, you know, what we can afford. Why do you feel that way? Kind of an informal meeting amongst department heads to discuss the needs and wants.
But then there's also a formal.
Okay, so that is correct. So that process would happen.
But I don't think you should say affordable. What does the town need?
Affordable,
Right.
Well, you said affordable.
Is it affordable wants and needs and the general?
I
That's
thought he
not-
said in.
We're just talking,
Right.
it's an informal. From a process point of view, prior to that fire commission.
Department head
The
and
department,
department head.
the fire departments are kind of looked at as department heads.
Right.
They come and present the budget. They talk about it behind the scenes. They eventually give to the board of selectmen, they give to the board of finance.
And so then, once, if they agree, and sometimes you're gonna agree or you're gonna disagree.
That's what it used to be.
The selectmen may say, hey, there's no way, Charlie Brown, and they may say, well, guess what? We feel strongly in our position, or you come to compromise, right?
Right.
Okay, so then from there, it goes to the Board of Finance.
That's what it used to.
Okay, right. Well, from what I understand, the reason this commission was created, because there was an impasse between that informal discussion the department heads, and that the fire department then went to the Board of Finance and said, we want this, and we feel that we need all these things. And so because of that contention, the prior selectmen created through process, through town ordinance, this fire commission to put some stopgaps in between a fire chief coming directly to the Board of Finance and kind of subverting that department head to department head discussion. Is that a reasonable, this is what I was.
Wait, hold on, you're asking me.
Uh-huh.
I can't speak to the whole reason he did it that way.
Right.
Right? I can tell you that there's a lot of contention, as Joe mentioned here, because of the process. And that there was a real need to look at having a middle person, a middle board,
Right.
sort of like we do police commission, to actually look at all the budget stuff and actually work with them. So if something was done before it got to the board of selectmen or board of finance, I don't know if they were going directly to the board of finance. I don't know. But I can tell you from my perspective, things are also getting more complicated and more difficult.
Well, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going.
Right.
So I think it's reasonable to assume, and especially talking to the two fire chiefs informally on the outside of this commission, that they felt that it was rammed down their throat. It was done, that was the consensus that they told me. So that comes down to, okay, the politicians, the Board of Finance, they don't want an entity to come in and say, hey, we need X, Y, Z, and that's what we need. We're the volunteer fire department. We know what we want, and darn well, you better listen to us or the house, the town is gonna burn down. All right? So the commission was created. The problem that I kind of have is that if it's totally appointed, then are the views of the fire department ever really getting reflected? Where is their voice? Their voice is to the commission, but the commission is controlled by the selectmen. So the people who are not ex officio members or members, they are the voice to the Board of Finance. So do we trust that? Huh? The members of the commission, the fire commission.
Look at the
will-
police commission, yeah, exactly. Look at-
Huh? Well, police commission's different.
Look at the
because-
Board of Ed.
No, but Han, there's two very big differences between a police commission and a fire commission. The fire commission is a volunteer agency, right?
Police commission.
The police commission is representing the needs of the department in regards to law enforcement, public safety, but there's also a labor commission, a labor component to it, negotiating contracts, all of that.
It's also in the
So
town's
that, yes,
role.
No,
No.
this commission doesn't negotiate anything. This guy does.
well, I don't know, I just go,
Yeah, I
I just go by statute where the.
No,
police commission has
I
authority.
negotiated. the
Oh,
labor
but no,
contracts.
to your point, I'm gonna back you up on this, okay? The police commission has more authority as elected body over the policy of the police department.
Correct.
And they also set the budget, they pass it through to us.
They're
that's
also
the budget.
employees.
And we're talking
the
about,
commission.
the police commission is the policy body for the police department. When it comes to the day-to-day operation, that's me, right? I'm there to support the chief and support the department. I'm in charge of day-to-day operation and helping the police department execute the policy that's set by the police commission. To your point, I understand.
There's a labor component, there's different animals.
But yes, volunteer fire departments are a different animal. And with the fire board ordinance, it did try to tighten that up to remind us that they do work for the town. We carry their workers' comp. We do stipends in some instances, and things because of this relationship that are financial, and we do that. So looking at how we run it with respect to the commission, it will never be completely the same as the police department. But it should be close. And that's what they object to right now.
I got an end to this.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, my first question is a fire commission even needed?
Yes.
Can there be a language that says both chiefs submit their proposal to the selectmen?
They already do.
Okay, and then.
They make their voices known.
But the purpose of the commission was to advise the selectmen what the needs of the departments are so they can make rational decisions.
Yep, okay.
So we don't want to get rid of it. We want to encourage
Yeah,
it,
all right.
but we want to encourage the right people to
But-
look at it a couple different ways.
But,
That's, it's that simple.
yeah, but John, it's not that simple.
Oh, no, it's a lot simpler than it's going.
You just think some things, sir. You're saying that,
Well,
I understand the third party part, I get it. But if the commission is chosen by a particular party, let's say, because remember, right, there's
we're not
there's
talking
three.
party.
Right, yeah. Thank you. Let's not go
We're not
there.
talking party.
Of you.
And there's always
No.
representation of
No.
all the parties.
Right.
Wait.
I'm just saying it could
I
be
have
like-
to interrupt you.
Yes.
Because for years, these fire departments have worked autonomously and they've been used to working autonomously. Bravo to them. They're all
Absolutely.
volunteers. I have no problem with any of that. But I think Joan's point is the overarching issue here. They've not been able to work together because they have two different jobs. One's a different part of town, they have they're two different departments, and we're not asking them to work together as much as let other people make sure everybody's interests are taken into account so that they don't have to go to dad every time and beg for money. And that's
Yeah.
the real problem, is that they come in and they go, well, I want this truck. And no, it's okay, guys. So, I mean, they don't have the time to work together because they're so damn busy doing what they do and they're all understaffed.
My concern is that this commission does actually reflect the views of both and that it isn't one-sided.
But how is that different from any other board of commission that are all
Both
volunteers?
departments.
Yes, I'm just have some concern that the views of the either agency may be put on the sideline. And the value of, you know, their wants and needs may not be, they have no say, they have no standing other than to advise, is my point. The fire department, the volunteer fire department, made up of all volunteers in this community, they give their time, their training, all of that.
You're
You're saying,
disrespecting that.
huh? You're saying,
No, I'm not disrespecting
no, I'm not
that.
saying you are. I'm not saying you are at all.
But
But I'm
is
saying-
that a rational assumption that it is going to be one-sided? You know,
No,
I would do believe that people, you know, citizens here in Bethel
Yeah.
and be fair-minded.
And do the right
And
thing.
when they work on their commission,
So I think
they
what's
swear
Special
that
about
they're
this
gonna
board.
do the duties of that commission.
right.
They take an oath, so, and they're appointed. It's duly recognized that they are officials. You know, they have a
The reason that
responsibility.
this board needs special rules versus all the other boards in Bethel is because we have two departments that are competitive, whether we want them to be or not, whether they should be or not. That's one reason that this board was formed, and that's one charter of this board is to deal with the competitiveness so that, like you said, you're not running to daddy saying.
No,
"Hey,
no,
what
the,
do you
that board was not created to make sure that Stony Hill got what Bethel got. That board was created to make
she's
sure
not
that
saying
Bethel got what they needed.
I think she's agreeing.
Exactly.
Oh,
I think
okay,
she's
I
actually,
thought,
yeah,
I
no,
said,
no,
you said the
no,
other way.
I think she's actually
no,
agreeing.
My apologies.
No, I just.
But no, I
And
interrupted.
by having one ex officio member from each department, they should be equally represented and their needs should be equally presented.
Yeah.
And this committee of citizens should listen to, I want the shiny red truck, I want this other shiny red truck. And that committee of citizens should be able to figure out what's best for Bethel between the two of them. So it's getting, and make it's
Yeah,
getting.
you get yours one
And
year,
also-
you get yours the other year.
I don't know if you remember the situation where a fire truck was not maintained correctly and was put forward to be replaced, and then it turned out all they had to do was fix it.
Yes,
That's exactly what
That's
I
what
think.
spurred this board on as well, to kind of make sure that situations like that don't come about again.
But can I give you another example of what happened with the Board of Finance and the town of Bethel? Okay, so Knickerbocker created this commission, okay? Said this is a great idea. They all got together. They came to the Board of Finance, said, we need a fire truck, we need a fire truck, and we didn't know what they needed. We didn't know if they needed 4 fire trucks. So we spent $28,000 going out and getting a report to say, what does Bethel need? Do you believe what happened? The report said they need exactly what the fire chief said a year ago. Well, but a common sense says, well, how could that have been that fire chief was spot on? We spent $28,000 to figure out we needed exactly what that fire chief was campaigning for 3 years. And that's what we got. So then the Board of Finance had to buy that truck because if somebody died in that 4-story building, okay, they'd be looking at us and say, I can't believe Ellis and Lennon said, we're not buying a fire truck today. And that's exactly what's wrong. To Dan's point, we just need people to have common sense that pay taxes in this town to try to do the right thing, not politically, to do the right thing for all of Bethel.
Right, and so
It's that simple.
that committee of citizens should be able to figure that out. And that committee of citizens maybe is with a group who would say, we need to do a study because.
But this request was just to make sure that it was an even board, to make sure that Bethel got what they needed, not what a special interest group got.
In an absence of a fire commission, all of this research goes on the backs of the Board of Finance, and they've got other things.
Absolutely.
Not just Board of Finance, goes to Board of.
Yeah, he's got to recommend it to
It has
us.
to go before the
That's right.
It's not the Board of Finance, it gets stuck with.
So I think.
Right.
Yeah, you get stuck with it first, but it's,
It's me.
it ends up,
So-
you really
I do
need
think
that
it's
fire
important to
commission.
not allow current or former firefighters on this board, except the 2 ex officio members who are advisory.
We gotta
And we're
stand
getting their
to my
expertise and
back.
we're respecting their professionalism. But then the citizens, who also are professional and smart, have common sense, are going to take all that information and distill it into something that is best for Bethel. I think that if you allow current or former firefighters to be part of that voting body, you're setting us up for a future first selectman to load it up with people from Stony Hill.
But that's,
But that's where we are right now.
But understand, that's where we are, right now,
Right now.
we're in that situation where it's.
Right now.
And I don't think we should be.
And I don't either, but at the same time, charters are important because you don't want to make them overly restrictive
Time.
either.
Right.
They have to, And there has to be the opportunity for the board of selectmen, not just the first one, but the board of selectmen to decide how they want that board to go and what kind of people they want on it. So if there's a Norwalk firefighter who lives in town, doesn't ever volunteer in town, the first.
I'm
selectman
not
will-
saying prohibit
But
that.
what
But
about
you're-
somebody
you're-
who just
yeah.
retires and then wants to be on it?
Well, I think it's really, if we prohibit it, then we're taking away the ability for the selectmen and the board of selectmen to make decisions.
They should make this.
But
That's what I'm saying.
I think if we don't.
And sometimes it's difficult to
Well,
get people to run.
But it is difficult, but listen, I feel down on
But
this.
Penny wants to say.
But that's exactly what I was saying when all of this started,
Yeah.
is that, and Alice, you put it really well, a minimum may be, or there may be a maximum.
Maybe a maximum, not a
Maximum.
minimum.
And it could be a Bethel firefighter who retired 5 years ago,
Yeah.
still wants to be involved, you know, has knowledge, is no longer, you know, clearly not livelihood, but it's no longer like hands in the pie, you know.
I don't think
either
there's such a person. I think they're still gonna have an alliance to getting the shiny fire.
But I think the board of
I think that's
selectmen,
really wrong. I'm
the
sorry.
board of selectmen need to be free to make that.
Well, a lot of things are wrong, but reality.
You're right, because we're gonna end up with the wives of, the brothers of, the cousins of, the ex of, you can't just deny everybody. But I do think that we really ought to consider not having current firefighters in the town of Bethel on that 5-person board, allowing 2 of ex officio members. So you're gonna end up with an ex, you're gonna end up with a wife, you're gonna end up with a brother, you're gonna end up with a cousin, but that then
So the
leaves
5
the
members may not be a
current
current firefighter.
current.
I think that's legit. If that's-
Yeah.
That gets us.
I mean, that's, you had that in there, then we took it out.
Yeah, but
Now we're
also
trying to put it
further,
back in again.
it's complicated, but yeah, I don't think that any selectman should be appointing current members, but I also, you know, it gets tricky.
So instead, but your original proposal was each of whom shall never serve as a firefighter. It didn't say in Bethel, it just said
Yeah, so I think all you do is somewhere at the end there, Nick has to put none of the voting
But you're
members.
gonna
should
say
be
current.
Current
Yeah,
so-
fire, in the town of Bethel.
Right.
So Rich Stone, for instance,
Are
could
not
be on it if he wanted to be.
Well, if there's a prohibition, you're saying also the language which prohibits a town employee, but also a volunteer fireman from serving on the commission. That's also omitted.
What do you mean, town employee?
There was a provision in there that if you are a town
No,
employee.
that had to do,
Elected.
that had to do with
Other boards.
elected positions.
No, I remember. I can probably find
And
it.
we talked about it and at the last meeting, we said, no, that had to do with
Unless
assessment
there's something,
appeals.
you talk about the current situation.
The proposed language, I can find it.
I don't think it's in
Remember,
that.
it said something about a town employee, if you're a current town employee, we're not eligible to be on the commission.
So
No, it was just the,
Oh,
That's
it was on the, zoning board of appeals.
But I missed something that Alice said. You said, what somebody could serve.
Inland wetlands.
And, no, I mean.
Assessment appeals.
Rich Stone?
He's getting a guy who lives in
He lives in Bethel, but
Okay.
Bethel. Somewhere
I
else.
mean, can I just have a comment? I'm just perplexed at the point that we put all of our volunteer firemen, and this, I may be wrong, that we are assuming by default that any of the volunteer firemen that would be on this are just 100%, I want the shiny new truck, as somebody keeps saying. Don't we think that maybe, I may be wrong, that some of them are balanced and say, you know what, I would like a shiny new truck, but I don't want my taxes going up, or I don't think it's the most thing, to just by default say, the reason we need this commission is because we need somebody to kind of referee between the people who are always going to say we need a shiny new truck, and we don't want to hear that's all we need is a shiny new truck, because that costs money and everything else.
Matt, you're discounting the fact that we may just want to also consider getting the public involved.
Right.
I think it's right.
Because
I think it is. Oh, I'm not saying not. I'm not saying not, but I just feel bad for any volunteer fireman in this town who has been painted by some people here that keep saying
Are you
only.
insinuating I am?
You just told me. You just
Whoa,
said.
whoa,
I said,
whoa,
oh
whoa,
my
whoa.
God.
Yeah,
I
no,
think that's not fair.
Yep.
It's not.
John, you just said to me a
That's fine.
minute
No, it's
ago,
fine.
you haven't been, you don't know reality is what you said.
Hey, hey,
That's
Let's
what you
not,
said.
let's not now. Shirley, Chair. listen, the fire department, we love them. They're great. They work hard. The chiefs do not want this. The chiefs didn't want a fire commission in the first place. It was rammed down their throat. That's how they felt about it. I understand. But there is a fire commission. It will remain a fire commission regardless of what this board does. The question is, do we codify it in our charter or not? And if we do, how do we do it? Because we need a fire commission from my perspective, because I need a group of interested community members to get in there, learn all about it, be advocates for the fire department, know the difference about what's coming, help work out the two departments and make sure they work together. I need somebody who can do that legwork. Because right now it all comes to me and I become the arbiter of all that stuff. With things getting much more complicated in the fire service, right? We have all kinds of issues because we carry all the liability. I want a group of people to understand how this is going to work. I want a group of people who will understand to talk, maybe talk to the legislature when they turn around and they say they're changing the in-line of duty determination rule, right? If somebody has a heart attack, a stroke, or a pulmonary embolism within 24 hours of being in the fire department, that's an in-line duty death, which means, but eventually they're going to do workers' comp cases against us. I want a group of people who can do all that and really work with the fire department, because it's getting much more difficult, much more complicated. And by the way, I guarantee you in 5 years, every one of those firemen are going to love it. They have a fire commission looking out for them and working with it. Right now, there's a lot of craziness about it, and some people are not so thrilled with it. I think it's weird to throw it out. But we need the information to work that.
I think there's gonna be a time where we're gonna need a fire chief.
Yes. Yes, I think we're going to need to pay fire administrator chief, but go ahead.
Can I offer some language?
Yeah.
That we can maybe come to consensus, because I think we are there.
Yeah.
Without all of the rest of this. A fire commission consisting of 5 voting members who are not current firefighters.
In the town of Bethel.
If firefighters or in the town of Bethel, fine. And each shall serve yada yada. In addition, shall appoint 2 non-voting, and that continues, as it is. One green partner. Can I just, I should know this. This is advisory.
Yes.
This is, they are not making policy.
No.
They are,
But understand.
but they will be considering policy, but then presenting it
Yes.
to the selectmen.
Yes.
Okay, good.
And by the way, all that is determined by ordinance.
Right.
Right.
And I do like your language. I believe I got it all. And there was talk for a while ago about a maximum number. And the problem I see, when you put language in a charter that says maximum, it becomes the minimum.
Yeah.
True.
So I think.
Yeah, no,
I
I let go of that.
No, I
Yeah.
think it's good. I think the ex officio members gives us the respect for professionalism, and it gives us the data, the direct line to get that data and the information.
The other thing to consider is you look at Stony Hill, as Joan Road, all of the building that's going up there. At some point, it may not be our generation. There will be a tipping point where you'll have to have paid departments, at least one. Because I can't imagine Stony Hill having to deal with all of that, because they may or may not have a membership. They are going to need help at one point or other. And if we have this commission, you have citizens that are already built into being on their side that can advocate for what their need is. I think Stony Hill is going to be the first one with the greatest needs. I know downtown is really hitting it too. But because we have 2 different departments, you can look at Stony Hill and it's starting to look like Co-op City.
Oh, God, thank you.
I'm sorry, it is. I mean,
Well, that's our zoning commission.
well, but be that as it may, all of those people and all of those children in our school systems and our fire department, our little fire department across the street. So if they have people on their side to advocate for them, where these guys work all day long and then volunteer, come on, they can't do it. They can't do all the
It's kind of like, listen, you're the first kind of person to be on fire commission. And you know why? You're not a fireman, but you've shown interest in going out there. You give me great information about what other towns are doing to recruit volunteers. It's just, that's what a fire commission should be working on.
Yeah.
And they can't, we need a group of people we put together who are problem solvers, want to get into it and find these good things. Because you know what? We're going to find ourselves paying $1 million, $2 million a year for volunteer fire departments up there. Right? Because recruiting or whatever, to keep us from getting to that Yeah, seven may not.
Yeah, but we spent 5 million on the facility.
Right.
Yeah, you have to pay
So
members
Nick,
involved.
you think that helps you kind of get to where we want to go?
Well, that's hard too.
I think so with the first section. I have a couple of questions with that.
How could you have any questions?
Oh, yeah, it's such a word.
Well,
What's the second section?
Which is.
the ex officio, part, right? Board of Selectmen shall appoint 2 non-voting ex officio members to represent the 2 fire departments. So
One from each department.
One or-
Each
well,
department, right.
we're assuming that there's employees. Nowhere in the charter.
We could just-
Nick, you're the man.
So you can name it Stony Hill.
No. One ex officio member from each fire department.
Yeah.
In case we have 3 departments someday.
Yeah,
There you go.
we're assuming by this language that we're always gonna have 2 partners.
So instead you
So from
say,
each fire.
say,
Yeah.
say one non-voting
One
ex
ex officio
member.
member
and they
appointed
work
from each
from
department, representing.
Wow. That's all of that.
Hold on a minute.
As we move closer.
More questions for the second part.
Okay. I had some more.
I may. It says, who shall be current firefighters employed outside of Bethel or former firefighters. That's confusing to me. Because if we want somebody who will, let's just say, we have somebody representing Stony Hill and somebody representing the downtown. We're not gonna get them because they're not permitted to be current firefighters in Bethel.
Yeah, so we took that out.
We took that out.
We took that out. We were basically just saying they need to be, that there are 2 ex officio members representing the department.
Okay, not according to the latest.
No,
No,
just not.
no,
It's-
that's
We just did.
You just took it out
During the
during your
meeting.
language.
during the meeting.
Okay,
You raised it, we agreed.
But I mean, I think what Nick brings up is very, very smart. To just say,
It's one from each.
add an ex officio member from each department.
But should we name the department? Stony Hill?
No,
No,
from
absolutely not.
each department,
From each
and
department.
they can send whomever they want.
And we don't know how many departments will be someday.
But
Well,
they
I
can,
think
but
we
they,
make recommendations.
they
to the
can
Board of
send a
Selectmen, the Board of
retired
Selectmen,
firefighter.
But the Board of Selectmen appoint them.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yes.
An ex officio member
They
from
they
each
make a
department.
recommendation.
That's
to
a
the
good
Board of
point,
Selectmen.
Alice. Are we saying that the ex officio should be a currently employed or volunteer?
Part of this.
Dan,
I think that's what it said,
From
yes.
I think one of the things we ought to consider from each department means that they can send a recently retired
Whoever
firefighter
they want.
rather than an active. They don't have
Okay,
to
so
send-
then-
Okay,
They
they
can
can
send
send
whoever they
representing,
want.
an ex
Okay.
officio member representing each.
Or the
fire department.
chiefs, they can send whomever they want.
And I've advised the chiefs, don't send the chief as a member, it's silly. Because the
It's up to
chiefs
them.
already get a seat in the house because they're the chief.
Yeah.
Because the commission works with the chief.
They
I
can-
think
they can-
representing
they can
covers
send
it, because
who
that
they
can mean whatever they want it to be. If they want to send a retired member, if they want to send a current member, if they want to send somebody who's just in favor of them, I don't know.
Yeah.
As long as they're representing the interests.
all right, I'm gonna go there.
Uh-oh.
And please correct me if I'm wrong, please, I have totally, correctable. And this is because John brought this up. This commission that the selectmen are going to appoint. Is there a political component, a political party component, similar to, let's say, we've got the elected planning and zoning, it has to have X number of.
Yes.
Not,
There needs to be
not ex
numbers.
officio, the ex officio can
No,
be.
no, no, I'm talking
But
about
yes, it's
the
under
five,
the,
I'm talking about the 5 voting members.
it's under the rules of the
Absolutely.
charter.
That's already.
Already for.
Any board or commission.
Max number.
Does that need to be spelled out here?
No,
Or is that-
it's already spilled out in the,
It overarches every board. and commission.
everything.
I'm just looking at
No, it's good.
John Q, who comes in off the street, looks at this and says,
You know,
that's
it
it.
applies to every appointed board and every elected
Okay.
board.
And the ex officios, we're saying it doesn't matter. They can all be D's, they can all be R's.
Right.
The two,
However,
Because they don't have-
one per,
It doesn't-
one per department.
yes, however many departments we have.
Which actually leads me really briefly back to the conversation about the budget hearings and, being recessed or adjourned or, all of this stuff. one of the reasons that these things happen for either way is that 75, 50%, maybe even 90% of the voting population has no idea what that means. And doesn't have any idea what the implications are or whatever. We've got a problem with getting information and knowledge out to the public. So the reason that I brought it up is that I'm not dumb and I do know that, but I don't know that. So just to be aware that there are going to be people that are going to look at this and say, yeah, but. So just to be aware of the need for education in this thing. Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm done.
I- From what I just learned that EMS is not part of the fire department.
Not part of the fire. The Board of Fire doesn't have oversight of the EMS.
The Board of Fire and Health. So how does EMS make their bids for capital projects, capital equipment? What?
So the budgets all come through the fire department. The budgets for everything. Yes, EMS.
So EMS.
Policy is, but there's EMS commission separate. That's where I was going with that. But all the budget for the fire department, whatever comes to them, comes from us, but
So
EMS
EMS
is
wants
usually,
ambulance.
but EMS is usually a separate thing, part of the corporation of the fire department.
So EMS wants a new ambulance. How do they do it?
Their money to buy it.
They go to, it's their money, it's non-taxpayer
It's
money.
not taxpayer money.
Okay.
From
so-
fees they
From
charge.
fees, okay, so it's a separate kind of entity.
At some point, are they going to want a commission?
Not today.
Probably not.
Oh, no, we already have an EMS commission.
I'm just
We
saying.
we already have an EMS commission.
Okay.
And it's, I mean, it's basically like the health director, myself, the emergency management director. It's not real strong on just the EMS because they are private entities.
Right.
Right now they're operating, but we are working actually together to do some agreements between all of us, kind of bring it out in the open and work more efficiently because of the amount of money it costs us to do, the town to do our part of the service. Paramedic stuff we pay for.
Thank you.
So anything else, Nick?
No, I think I have enough to work with. and get-
All right, well, we hit our 9 o'clock hour and we finished 7:43.
Motion to adjourn.
Right.
I'm bringing my chat.
Before we leave, I was just letting you know that I had my last meeting.
Guys,
Dan, Karen was announcing this last year.
Oh, this is my last meeting. I'm resigning because I've been appointed to the Board of Finance for vacancy. And according to this lovely charter, I can't do both.
Actually, it's state law. It's state law.
Oh, it's okay. Okay, suggest we change it. So.
You can do that too.